There is a truth about manifestation that makes people deeply uncomfortable. Not because it's complex, but because it demands something most are unwilling to give: complete responsibility. Not the motivational kind of responsibility where you wake up at 5 a.m. and hustle. The other kind, the terrifying kind. The kind that says you are not a victim of your circumstances, you are their author. In the 12th century, a Sufi mystic named Ibn Arabi understood something about the nature of reality that modern manifestation teachers either don't know or refuse to say out loud. He called it the divine imagination, and it was not a metaphor. It was an ontological claim about how existence itself functions. Ibn Arabi taught that God created the universe through imagination, drawing it from within himself, from the eternal potentialities of his own being. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. If humans are mirrors of the divine essence, then we too possess this creative, imaginative power, not symbolically, literally. This is the secret that nobody accepts. Not because they don't believe in manifestation, millions of people believe in that. They reject the implication that if imagination creates reality, then every circumstance you find yourself in, every pattern that repeats, every relationship that fails in the same way, every financial struggle, every emotional prison, you imagined it into being. Not consciously, perhaps. But that doesn't matter. The law doesn't care about your awareness of it, just as gravity doesn't care whether you believe in it when you fall. Most people approach manifestation like children approaching a vending machine. They want to insert the right coins, affirmations, visualizations, vision boards, and receive their desired outcome. They want the technique without the transformation. They want the power without the responsibility. They want to change their external reality while keeping their internal identity completely intact. And this is precisely why they fail, because manifestation, in the way Ibn Arabi understood it, is not about acquiring things. It's about recognizing what you already are. Ibn Arabi spoke of Wahdat al-Wujud, the unity of being. At its core, this doctrine makes a radical claim. There is only one existence, and that existence is divine. Everything you perceive as separate, your body, your thoughts, other people, physical objects, are not separate entities. They are manifestations, self-disclosures of the one absolute reality. Like an object reflected in countless mirrors, the divine essence expresses itself through infinite forms, and you are one of those forms. But you are not separate from the essence. You are the essence looking at itself through the limitation of a particular form. This is not pantheism. It's not saying everything is God in a way that makes God meaningless. It's saying that existence itself belongs only to the divine, and what you call your separate existence is actually a mode of divine self-expression. The implications are staggering. If there is only one existence, then the consciousness looking through your eyes is the same consciousness that animates all of reality. Your imagination is not your personal faculty. It's the divine imaginative power operating through the specific lens of your form. Now pause and feel the weight of that. Every thought you think is the divine thinking through you. Every feeling you sustain is the divine feeling through you. Every state you embody is the divine manifesting as that state through you. You are not a separate creature trying to manipulate reality from the outside. You are reality itself, temporarily convinced of its own separateness, trying to remember what it always was. This is why manifestation teachings that focus purely on technique are spiritually bankrupt. They're trying to give you tools to manipulate reality while keeping the illusion of separation intact. They tell you to visualize your desire, to feel the feeling of the wish fulfilled, to assume the state. And these techniques work, but not for the reasons people think. They don't work because you're sending requests to some external universe that may or may not grant them. They work because you are not separate from the creative power that generates reality. Ibn Arabi taught that the cosmos exists in stages of manifestation. First, there is the absolute undifferentiated divine essence, pure potential, containing all possibilities but expressing none. Then comes the first manifestation, where the divine knows itself through its own names and attributes. Then the second manifestation, where archetypal forms emerge in the imaginal realm, not physical yet, but not purely abstract either. Finally, the third manifestation, the physical world you perceive through your senses. Notice the structure. Physical reality is not the beginning of the creative process. It's the end. It's the final crystallization of something that began in pure consciousness, moved through imagination, and only then condensed into matter. This is why trying to change physical reality directly is exhausting and largely futile. You're trying to manipulate the end result of a process that began several stages earlier. It's like trying to change the image on a movie screen by touching the screen instead of changing the film in the projector. The real creative act happens in imagination, not fantasy, not daydreaming, not wishful thinking. Active imagination, the faculty that exists between pure intellect and physical sensation, the realm where forms first emerge before they solidify into matter. Ibn Arabi called this the imaginal world, the alam al-mithal, and he considered it absolutely real, not symbolic, not metaphorical, an actual dimension of existence where the spiritual takes form and the physical becomes spiritualized. This is the realm where angels appear to prophets, where visions occur, where dreams unfold, and most importantly for our purposes, where your future already exists before it manifests physically. When you imagine something with the intensity and clarity that gives it the tones of reality, you are not creating a fantasy. You are tuning into a real state that exists in the imaginal realm, and your sustained attention to that state begins to pull it through the stages of manifestation until it crystallizes in physical form. But here's the part that disturbs people. If this is how reality works, and both ancient mystics like Ibn Arabi and modern teachers of consciousness agree that it is, then you have been using this power your entire life. Every limitation you experience, you imagined into being by identifying with the state of limitation. Every recurring problem, you perpetuated by returning to the feeling of the problem. Every lack, every fear, every wound, you didn't create them maliciously, but you sustained them by dwelling in the state they represent. This is the secret nobody wants to accept. Not that you can manifest what you want, that's easy to accept, but that you have been manifesting what you don't want. That your current reality, in all its disappointment and frustration, is a perfect reflection of the states you have been habitually occupying. That there is no external force victimizing you. There is only consciousness, experiencing the consequences of its own activity. Most people reading this will feel resistance. Your mind will generate objections. What about systemic oppression? What about childhood trauma? What about genetics, accidents, other people's choices? And these are valid questions on one level, but they miss the point. The point is not that external circumstances don't exist. The point is that your relationship to those circumstances, the meaning you assign them, the identity you construct around them, that is entirely within your domain. Two people can experience the same trauma. One will define their entire life through the lens of victimhood, perpetually recreating situations that confirm their wounded identity. The other will integrate the experience and use it as a catalyst for transformation. What's the difference? Not the external event, the internal state they choose to inhabit in response to it. And that choice, usually unconscious, granted, determines everything that follows. Ibn Arabi understood this at the deepest level. He taught that human beings are the most complete manifestation of the divine, not because we're special in an egotistical sense, but because we contain all possibilities. We are the microcosm that reflects the macrocosm, the universe in miniature. And just as the divine brought the cosmos into being through imagination, we bring our personal world into being through the same faculty. This is not a metaphor. This is not spiritual poetry. This is a description of how consciousness operates. You are not in the universe. The universe is in you, your personal universe, the one you directly experience. And that universe conforms, always and inevitably, to the state you predominantly occupy. The state is everything, not your fleeting thoughts, not your momentary visualizations. The state, the underlying feeling, the baseline identity, the consistent energetic signature you emit simply by being yourself. This is what Ibn Arabi meant by manifestation. The divine manifests itself through infinite states and forms, and you, as an individualized center of divine consciousness, manifest your reality by inhabiting particular states. Want to know what state you've been inhabiting? Look at your life. It will tell you with brutal honesty. Your relationships reflect the state of your internal relationship with yourself. Your financial situation reflects your state of consciousness around worthiness and abundance. Your health reflects your state of internal harmony or discord. Not because you're being punished, but because reality has no choice but to conform to consciousness. This is law, not morality. And this is precisely where most manifestation teachings become dangerous, because they turn law into morality. They make people feel guilty for their circumstances, as if poverty or illness represents some kind of spiritual failure. This is a profound misunderstanding. Ibn Arabi never suggested that external circumstances indicate spiritual attainment. He taught that all states are divine self-disclosure. The state of poverty and the state of wealth are both expressions of the infinite reality, neither more real or more spiritual than the other. The question is not which state is better in some absolute sense. The question is, which state do you prefer to experience? Because you have the power to choose, not through force, not through struggle, but through the recognition of what you are. You are not a limited human trying to access divine power. You are divine power, temporarily experiencing itself through the lens of limitation. And the moment you recognize this, not intellectually, but as a lived reality, everything changes. This recognition is what Ibn Arabi called gnosis marifa. It's not knowledge about God. It's knowledge of God, the direct experiential realization that there is no separation between the knower and the known, the seeker and the sought. When you achieve this recognition, manifestation stops being something you do. It becomes something you are. You don't try to manifest. You recognize that you've been manifesting all along, and you consciously choose what to manifest next. But here's where it gets even more uncomfortable. This recognition demands death, not physical death. Ego death, the death of the separate self. Because as long as you identify as a limited person with a specific history, personality, and set of circumstances, you cannot access the full creative power of consciousness. You remain trapped in the state of limitation, continuously recreating the same patterns, wondering why your visualizations don't work. The separate self, what mystics call the ego, what psychologists call the self-concept, is not your enemy. It's a necessary function. You need some degree of stable identity to navigate physical reality. But when you believe that identity is what you fundamentally are, you imprison yourself. You limit the infinite to the finite. You reduce divine consciousness to a biographical narrative. And from that contracted state, you try to manifest your desires, not realizing that the very sense of lack driving those desires is itself the obstacle. Ibn Arabi taught that true knowledge comes through the annihilation of the false self and the recognition of your essential unity with the divine. This is not about destroying your personality. It's about recognizing that your personality is a mode of divine expression, not a separate entity. Like a wave that forgets its ocean, you've forgotten what you are. And in that forgetting, you experience limitation, lack, and separation, none of which are ultimately real. The path of manifestation, then, is not about acquiring more. It's about removing the false belief in less. It's about dismantling the illusion of separation that makes you feel distant from what you desire. When you realize that consciousness is all there is, and that you are that consciousness, the distance between you and your desire collapses. Not because the desire comes to you, but because you recognize you were never separate from it. This is why Ibn Arabi said that the Gnostic sees God in everything, not as a religious platitude, but as a lived reality. When you look at another person, you see divine consciousness expressing itself through that form. When you experience a challenge, you see divine consciousness creating an opportunity for its own expansion through you. When you desire something, you recognize that desire as the divine desiring to know itself through the experience of obtaining that thing. From this perspective, there are no accidents. There are no victims. There are no external forces acting upon you. There is only consciousness, endlessly imagining itself into infinite forms, experiencing itself through countless perspectives, playing every role in its own cosmic drama. And you, the specific node of awareness reading these words, are not watching the drama. You are both the actor and the author, the dreamer and the dream. Now most people hear this and immediately retreat into either spiritual bypassing or nihilistic despair. If everything is divine manifestation, does that mean we should accept injustice? If I created my own suffering, does that mean I deserve it? These questions reveal that the mind is still operating from separation, still trying to divide reality into good and bad, spiritual and material, acceptable and unacceptable. Ibn Arabi's teaching transcends these dualities. Yes, everything is divine manifestation. And no, that doesn't mean you passively accept circumstances that don't align with your true nature. In fact, it means the opposite. When you recognize yourself as the creative power, you take full responsibility for your experience, and you consciously choose to manifest states that reflect your deepest truth. Not because some states are more spiritual than others, but because you prefer them, because they feel more aligned with what you recognize yourself to be. This is liberation, not bypassing. You're not pretending everything is perfect when it's not. You're recognizing that you have the power to change it, not by fighting against what is, but by inhabiting the state of what you prefer. The fight is the problem, the resistance is the problem, because when you resist what is, you energize it. You give it attention, and attention is creative. What you fight, you strengthen. What you accept, you transcend. Acceptance in this context doesn't mean resignation. It means recognizing that your current circumstances are a manifestation of past states, and rather than resisting them, you simply shift to a new state. The circumstances will then reorganize to match the new state, not through your effort, not through your struggle, but through the law of manifestation, which operates as impersonally and reliably as any law of physics. This is the secret Ibn Arabi knew. This is what the mystics across traditions have always taught, though often in veiled language, because direct statement tends to provoke resistance. The secret is this: you are not a person with consciousness. You are consciousness, having the experience of being a person. And consciousness is the only reality. Everything else, matter, energy, space, time, emerges from consciousness, not the other way around. Modern physics is starting to confirm what Ibn Arabi knew 8 centuries ago. Quantum mechanics reveals that the observer affects the observed, that reality exists in a state of probability until consciousness collapses it into actuality. Double-slit experiments show that particles behave differently when watched. The measurement problem demonstrates that consciousness plays a fundamental role in determining what manifests physically. But here's what even quantum physics hasn't fully grasped yet. It's not that consciousness affects reality. Consciousness is reality. There is nothing outside of consciousness. The physical world you perceive is not an external reality that consciousness observes. It's an internal reality that consciousness projects. Like a dream that feels utterly real while you're in it, your waking life is consciousness dreaming itself into form moment by moment. And just as you can become lucid in a dream and consciously direct its content, you can become lucid in waking life and consciously direct its manifestation. This is what Ibn Arabi called awakening. This is what mystics across traditions describe as enlightenment, gnosis, self-realization. Not an escape from reality, but a recognition of what reality is. The tragedy is that most people never awaken. They live their entire lives in a sleep state, unconsciously manifesting based on inherited beliefs, childhood conditioning, cultural programming. They experience life as something that happens to them, never recognizing that they are the happening itself. They seek salvation from external sources, religions, relationships, achievements, substances, never realizing that what they seek is what they are. And the manifestation industry, for all its potential, often perpetuates this unconsciousness. It teaches people to manifest from the state of lack, to want things because they don't have them, to desire change because they reject what is. This is manifestation from separation, and it's exhausting because you're constantly trying to bridge a gap that doesn't actually exist. You're trying to become what you already are, to obtain what you already contain. Ibn Arabi's approach is entirely different. He taught that you don't manifest by wanting, you manifest by being. You don't create your desire, you become it. And this is not positive thinking or self-deception. It's a shift in identity so profound that your entire relationship to reality transforms. You stop seeing yourself as a limited being trying to manipulate circumstances, and you start recognizing yourself as the infinite consciousness that generates all circumstances. From this recognition, manifestation becomes effortless, not because you stop desiring things, but because you no longer need them to complete you. You desire from wholeness, not from lack. You create from abundance, not from scarcity. And paradoxically, this is when physical manifestation accelerates, because you've removed the primary obstacle, the belief in separation. This is why Ibn Arabi said that the perfect human being, the Insan al-Kamil, is one who has realized their essential unity with the divine while still functioning in the world. Not someone who has transcended the world, but someone who has recognized that the world is the divine self-disclosure, and they are part of that revelation. They engage fully with life, but they are no longer identified exclusively with their individual form. They know themselves as both the wave and the ocean, the form and the formless, the manifestation and the source. This is the state of consciousness that makes manifestation not just possible, but inevitable. Because when you know yourself as source, you recognize that everything you desire already exists in potential. Creation is finished, as one modern teacher put it. Every possible state, every possible outcome, every possible experience already exists in the infinite field of consciousness. Your job is not to create it. Your job is to select it by inhabiting its state. Think of it like this. Consciousness is like an infinite film archive containing every possible movie. Your imagination is the projector that selects which film to play. Your sustained attention and feeling are what keep that film running consistently enough to create the experience of a continuous reality. Most people don't realize they're operating the projector, so they keep playing the same film over and over, wondering why their life never changes. But once you recognize your role as the operator, everything shifts. You realize you can choose a different film at any moment, not by forcing the current film to change, but by selecting a different one and allowing it to play. The transition might not be instantaneous. There's usually a lag between selecting the new state and seeing it fully manifest physically. But it's inevitable if you remain faithful to the new state. This is what Ibn Arabi meant by tawakkul, trust or reliance on the divine. Not passive waiting, but active trust in the law. You've done the creative act in imagination. You've selected the new state. You've become it in consciousness. Now you trust the law to bring it into physical form. You don't anxiously check for results. You don't waver back to the old state. You remain faithful, knowing that consciousness has no choice but to manifest what you consistently embody. But here's the deepest secret, the one that even most spiritual seekers resist. The manifestation itself doesn't matter. The desire, the outcome, the achievement, these are not the point. They're the excuse consciousness uses to know itself more fully. When you desire wealth, consciousness wants to experience itself as abundant. When you desire love, consciousness wants to experience itself as connected. When you desire health, consciousness wants to experience itself as vital. The desire is always pointing to a state of consciousness, not a physical thing. And when you realize this, you stop chasing objects and start embodying states. You recognize that what you truly want is never the thing itself, but the state of consciousness you believe the thing will give you. So you skip the middleman. You embody the state directly, and the things that match that state naturally appear. This is the secret Ibn Arabi knew. This is the secret nobody wants to accept, not because it's complicated, but because it's too simple. It bypasses all the techniques, all the rituals, all the effort. It says, you are what you seek. You are already whole. You are already divine. You are already the creative power. The only question is, what will you create next? And the answer depends entirely on what state you choose to inhabit, not temporarily in a meditation or visualization, but consistently as your default way of being. This is where most people fail. They touch elevated states briefly, during a workshop, while reading an inspiring book, in a moment of profound insight, but they don't sustain them. They return to their habitual state of limitation, and they wonder why their life doesn't change. The work, if you can call it that, is to make the desired state your natural state, to inhabit it so completely that it becomes who you are, not something you're trying to become. To feel it so consistently that it becomes your baseline, not an occasional peak experience. This is what Ibn Arabi called spiritual realization, not a momentary glimpse of truth, but a permanent shift in identity. And here's what makes this path challenging. It requires you to give up your investment in being a victim. It requires you to release your attachment to your story, your wounds, your justified complaints about how life has treated you unfairly. Not because those experiences weren't real, but because continuing to identify with them keeps you locked in the state they represent. You cannot manifest from victimhood. You cannot create from lack. You cannot transform from resistance. These states generate more of themselves because that's what states do. They manifest circumstances that confirm them. If you want different circumstances, you need to inhabit a different state. And that means letting go of the identity you've constructed around your limitations. This is the death that Ibn Arabi spoke of, the death of the false self, the limited identity, the biographical narrative. It's not comfortable, it's not easy. The ego will fight it because it perceives this shift as annihilation. But it's not annihilation, it's liberation. It's the recognition that what you thought you were, this small, limited, vulnerable self, was never real to begin with. You are and have always been the infinite consciousness, temporarily pretending to be limited. When this recognition becomes your lived reality, manifestation stops being something you do and becomes something you are. You don't manifest things. You manifest as things. You don't create circumstances. You are the creative power expressing itself through circumstances, and from this state, there is no effort, no strain, no anxiety about results. There is only the joy of consciousness, knowing itself through infinite forms and experiences. This is what Ibn Arabi saw. This is what he tried to communicate through thousands of pages of mystical writings, that you are not separate from God, that your imagination is divine imagination, that your consciousness is the consciousness that creates and sustains all of reality. And that once you recognize this, truly recognize it, not just intellectually grasp it, everything you've ever desired becomes accessible because you realize it was never outside you to begin with. The real secret of manifestation is that there is no one manifesting anything. There is only consciousness, endlessly manifesting itself to itself through infinite forms, and you are one of those forms temporarily convinced of its own separateness. The moment you remember what you are, separation dissolves, and with it, all sense of lack, all feeling of limitation, all experience of powerlessness. This is the secret nobody wants to accept, because accepting it means accepting total responsibility. Not blame, not guilt, but responsibility. The recognition that you are the author of your experience, that your life is a perfect manifestation of the states you have inhabited, that nothing happens to you that doesn't first happen through you. It means giving up every excuse, every justification, every reason why your life is the way it is because of external factors. And yet, this responsibility is also liberation. Because if you created this, you can create something else. If you manifested limitation, you can manifest expansion. If you generated lack, you can generate abundance. Not by doing more, but by being different. By inhabiting a new state so completely that the old state becomes impossible to return to. This is the path Ibn Arabi walked. This is the realization he tried to share. That manifestation is not a technique. It's the fundamental nature of reality. You are always manifesting, whether you know it or not. The only question is, will you do it unconsciously, perpetuating the past? Or will you do it consciously, creating a future that reflects what you now recognize yourself to be? The choice has always been yours. Not because you earned it, but because you are it. You are the creative power. You are the divine imagination. You are consciousness itself, temporarily experiencing limitation so it can know the joy of transcending it. This is the secret. This is the truth. This is what nobody wants to accept, because accepting it changes everything. And perhaps that's the real reason for the resistance, not because the teaching is unclear, but because it's too clear, not because the power is inaccessible, but because it's too close. We would rather believe we are powerless victims of circumstance than accept that we are the circumstance, the power, and the experiencer all at once. We would rather perpetuate limitation than take responsibility for transcending it. But the truth remains, whether accepted or rejected. You are not in the universe. The universe is in you. You are not seeking God. You are God, seeking to know itself through the experience of seeking. You are not trying to manifest. You are manifestation itself, the ongoing process by which consciousness knows itself through form. Ibn Arabi knew this 8 centuries ago. Modern teachers of consciousness are rediscovering it now. And you, reading these words, are being invited to recognize it in yourself, not as a belief, not as a philosophy, but as the living truth of what you have always been and will always be. Infinite consciousness, playing in the field of its own creative imagination, manifesting worlds within worlds, dreams within dreams, forever exploring the inexhaustible mystery of its own being. The question is not whether you have the power to manifest. You are the power. The question is, what will you choose to manifest next? And more importantly, will you continue to manifest from separation and lack, or will you finally accept the secret that changes everything, that you are not separate from what you seek, that you are the seeking itself, the sought, and the one who finds all at once, all along, always and forever? This is the secret Ibn Arabi died trying to share. This is the truth that every mystic across time has pointed toward. This is the reality that nobody wants to accept, because accepting it means you can never be a victim again, never claim powerlessness again, never hide behind circumstances again. You are exposed as what you truly are, the infinite creator, temporarily pretending to be the limited creation so that you might know the ecstasy of remembering. And in that remembering, everything changes. Not because reality changes, but because you recognize that you are reality, changing itself, knowing itself, loving itself through the magnificent game of forgetting and remembering, losing and finding, limiting and expanding. This is manifestation. This is consciousness. This is the secret. And now you know